Tonight, Israel's military ramps up attacks, expanding its offensive across all of Gaza. Palestinians struggle to find shelter in a growing combat zone as more evacuations are ordered in the south.
These are children, these are civilians that have absolutely nowhere to go.
The cost of trying to conceive.
The financial burden is significant.
A growing demand for the delivery of better fertility benefits. Plus, when the sky is no limit.
I found so much beautiful information and deep understanding of our universe.
The first Indigenous woman in Canada to become an astrophysicist, connecting ancient threads with starry nights.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. There are growing concerns tonight. The war between Israel and Hamas is evolving and expanding within Gaza and beyond. Commercial ships came under attack in the international waters of the Red Sea. American officials confirmed the USS Carney operating nearby responded and shot down drones traveling in its direction. This as Iran-backed Houthi militants claimed responsibility. In Gaza, gunfire and rocket bombardments intensified as the Israeli military pushes into the south. The Rafah border crossing reopened to foreign nationals this weekend. Global Affairs confirms roughly 130 Canadians, permanent residents and eligible family members traveled to Egypt through that crossing. CTV's Jeremy Charon starts us off.
Death, devastation, and despair. These are the scenes in Khan Yunis today. Attacks intensified in southern Gaza, hundreds killed in the last 24 hours. The Israeli Defense Force says troops are expanding their ground operation to the entire Gaza Strip.
The IDF has resumed targeting Hamas terror targets, striking more than 400 over the weekend, including extensive aerial attacks in the Khan Yunis area.
Formerly a safe zone, now Israel has ordered more evacuations in the south, calling Khan Yunis city a dangerous combat zone. This Canadian woman with family in the enclave says there is nowhere safe for them to go.
I have been bracing myself since yesterday, trying not to cry, but they are not okay. They're being told that they have to evacuate.
Outside the morgue at Nasser Hospital, bodies are carried out in bags. Families gather, praying for loved ones who've been killed. Our whole block was destroyed, this man says. 6 bodies here belong to me. 5 people are still under the rubble.
We can clearly say it's catastrophic. You have 1.8 million people who were forced to leave their home. We have 1.1 million people crammed in shelters.
Displaced Gazans lined up for food at this charity kitchen today. If we didn't have this kitchen, the situation would be very difficult. We wouldn't have any food, this young girl says. Only limited aid has moved into Gaza since the war resumed. Humanitarian organizations say the demand keeps growing, but the supply doesn't.
Now tonight, Egyptian officials say more than 800 dual nationals left Gaza through the Rafah border crossing this weekend. Heather?
Thanks, Jeremy. The conflict in the Middle East is unfolding during the world's biggest climate conference in Dubai.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Those heading in for talks on Sunday had to wade through protests and public demonstrations. About 100 people held a pro-Palestinian rally over the Israel-Hamas war near the Israeli pavilion at the summit. CTV's Colton Prail on the conference and the controversy overshadowing current talks.
Not looking good, everybody.
At COP28, it's life or death for the future of fossil fuels.
We need to phase out fossil fuels within a time frame compatible with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
The core question, if the world can continue using oil and gas with emissions-reducing technology, or if they're becoming exactly what they're made of, relics of the past.
This industry is way more effective at capturing politicians than they are at capturing emissions.
Sunday, these resurfaced comments from the head of COP28 pushing back on a complete phase-out, igniting a firestorm of criticism from climate activists.
Show me a roadmap for a phase-out of fossil fuel that will allow for sustainable socio-economic development, unless you want to take the world back into caves.
More than 100 countries have signed on to a statement that aims to include the phase-out of unabated fossil fuels as part of the COP28 negotiated outcomes. Canada's carbon management strategy relies heavily on emission abatement methods like carbon capture and storage. But in a statement to CTV News, a spokesperson for Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson writing, as we move towards net zero by 2050, it cannot simply be business as usual, add carbon capture and stir. The government instead pointing to upcoming framework for an oil and gas emissions cap as the main solution, something that could be announced by the end of COP28.
We've made progress on the climate crisis, but we've taken baby steps when we need to be running.
The Canadian government still expects to use some fossil fuels by 2050, but didn't answer when asked if they believe a complete phase-out is necessary to keep warming at 1.5 degrees. Heather.
Colton, thank you. The charred remains of two bodies discovered in a burned-out car on a Caribbean island are believed to be those of two Canadians. Renowned Quebec entrepreneur Daniel Langlois and his spouse Dominique Marchand were found dead after they'd been missing for a few days in their adopted home of Dominica. Langlois is best known for contributing to 3D animation software used in major films such as Jurassic Park. Police have taken 3 suspects into custody for questioning. Tragedy in New York City this morning when a man wielding a steak knife killed 4 family members, including 2 children, before being shot dead by police. The 38-year-old was visiting family in Queens, according to police. Among the dead, a 12-year-old boy and an 11-year-old girl. 2 police officers were also stabbed, one in the neck, the other in the head. Both are expected to recover. A vigil in Winnipeg today to honor the victims of last weekend's mass shooting. 5 people were shot inside a home. 4 of them died. CTV's Alexander Hollick now on a community in mourning.
Dozens of friends and family members gathered outside 143 Langside Street Sunday to remember the lives of their loved ones lost in last week's deadly shooting. 5 people were shot, 4 killed, and 1 person is still in hospital.
It's just devastating for this community.
Among the victims were 2 sisters, 34-year-old Crystal Shannon Beardy and 33-year-old Stephanie Amanda Beardy.
They were good kids. They were friendly, they were jokesters, they would help anybody in need.
I'm still very, very, very hurt that my 2 daughters are gone. I'm going to miss them a lot.
41-year-old Dylan Maxwell Lavallee and 29-year-old Malelek Lesari Lezekel were also killed.
And the only thing to do is to pull together and show support to one another.
Gardina Prince says she knew all 4 people who died. Lezekel was her partner and best friend.
He cared about people. He was giving. He was helpful. He had dreams and he had goals, and he was a smart guy.
On Friday, Winnipeg police arrested and charged 32-year-old Jamie Randy Felix with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder in connection to the shooting. The charges have not been tested in court, but the victim's family and friends say the arrest brings some relief.
We're happy that someone is going to be brought to justice for this brutal crime.
While this community is still reeling from the killings,
we lost a lot of sleep ourselves with all of this, and it's really, really hard.
Advocates say this vigil is an opportunity to begin the healing process.
The songs and the drum is the heartbeat of the community, and we want that to be here, and we want to help community heal.
Relatives of the Beardy family say they will be laying Crystal and Stephanie to rest in Winnipeg on December 11th. Alexandra Hollick, CTV News, Winnipeg.
As Canadian couples face fertility issues, more are choosing IVF and surrogacy. But the procedures cost thousands of dollars, and that has some pushing to have costs covered by insurance. CTV's Kamal Karmali explains.
It's been 5 months.
She's so cute.
Since the Colt family's dream came to life.
It's It's pretty unreal to go from wondering if you'll ever actually have parenthood happen to holding your child.
Bandon Colt, who has epilepsy, was told she couldn't carry a pregnancy all the way through. The couple then decided to go through surrogacy. The cost, though,
maybe my stomach dropped a little bit.
Came as a shock, questioning why more isn't being done to help potential parents overcome infertility issues.
We also think that the government should provide a national fertility strategy.
The World Health Organization defines infertility as a disease, and we need to start treating it as such.
Surrogacy could cost around $80,000. That includes the in vitro fertilization or IVF cycle, surrogate expenses, legal fees, and paying the consultant. 7 provinces have some kind of coverage, but not consistent or complete. Ontario and Quebec fund one round of IVF. Manitoba and Nova Scotia have a tax credit.
So what we end up with is a bit of a patchwork of coverage for things like IVF across the country.
Infertility is on the rise, now affecting 1 in 6 Canadians, according to Fertility Matters. Now a push for the feds to have consistent coverage across all provinces, pleading employers and insurance carriers to do the same.
The fact that insurance companies are not covering this almost suggests that they think that this is some sort of personal failure, and they don't see the medicalization of this.
Some companies making the shift, though, including Canada's 5 big banks, with lifetime maximums of $10,000 to $20,000. Just a drop in the bucket, though, of what advocates would like to see. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thank you. Miles Goodwin, the famous frontman who shot to stardom with Canadian rock and roll band April Wine, has died.
They're so made for rock and roll, the clothes and the hair, but most importantly, and I know it's a cliche, it's truly the songs. They were so memorable and so recognizable.
The Nova Scotia singer sold more than 10 million albums, received 11 Juno nominations, and was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame. Goodwin fronted April Wine for more than 5 decades and played his last show with the band in March. Miles Goodwin was 75. Coming up, criticism and controversy over the cancellation of a 20-year tradition.
To have an end to that hurts.
A menorah's glow dims in Moncton. Outrage tonight from the Jewish community in Moncton after a controversial decision by council not to display a menorah outside City Hall for the first time in 20 years. CTV's Alana Pickrell reports.
As Christmas decorations line the outside of Moncton City Hall, another significant holiday display will be absent this year. The president of the Moncton Jewish community says the city told him that the symbolic menorah will not be put up this year.
They were quoting a decision of the Supreme Court of Canada banning prayers at City Council, which is right. But that decision was not about putting or not putting a menorah.
It's a tradition that's happened in the city for the past 20 years, and it's one that represents acceptance to the relatively small Jewish community in Moncton.
For so many centuries, Jews were not accepted by the rest of the population. And to know that we are accepted makes us feel so good. And then, you know, to have an end to that hurts.
Since the news broke, there's been outrage from the community and, in fact, across the country, especially online. A petition has even been launched to force the city to reverse the decision. Critics say it's a slap in the face to the community.
The first thing I wanted to do was to say this is in Moncton and to apologize to our own Jewish community and to everyone in the Jewish communities across this country, because it's a terrible black eye. 2
city councillors, Dave Steeves and Brian Butler, have also posted publicly that they don't support this decision and are calling on the city to revisit the issue.
The argument about state and religion being separate, that's actually a really poor argument, because that's not what municipal government is supposed to do in this way by eliminating religion. It is supposed to be protecting people's rights to their beliefs.
Despite requests for comment from the city or mayor today, CTV News was told there'll be nothing official until tomorrow. encouraging to those offended by the decision.
I think that the mayor and those that voted for this will just be overwhelmed with the public backlash.
Hanukkah is only starting on the evening at sundown on Thursday, so there's still plenty of time to set up the menorah.
A call for the reinstatement of an important symbol during a time when messages of peace and goodwill are needed more than ever. Alana Pickrell, CTV News, Moncton.
A diplomatic spat has erupted between Greece and the UK over the fate of some ancient Parthenon sculptures housed in the British Museum. CTV's Krisan Ajkate explains.
Greece has long demanded the return of these 2,500-year-old Parthenon marble sculptures, which have been in the British Museum since 1832, a debate that is still being discussed to this day.
Whether it's solutions, loaning it or giving it back, I'm not qualified to say.
I personally believe that it should be sent back to Greece.
Relations between Greece and the UK have soured this week after the British Prime Minister abruptly cancelled a meeting with his Greek counterpart. Greece's government has since called the move a lack of respect to the country, but its Prime Minister was quick to say it wouldn't impact Greek-British relations in the long run. The cancellation of this meeting has gained even more publicity, not only in the UK but also in the world, Greece's Prime Minister said while meeting with the country's president. Speaking in the House of Commons, Rishi Sunak said he expected the meeting to be about illegal migration and strengthening national security between both countries, and was taken aback when it was going to be about returning the statues.
When it was clear that the purpose of a meeting was not to discuss substantive issues for the future, but rather to grandstand and relitigate issues of the past, it wasn't appropriate.
For the past 2 centuries, half of the statues have been on display at the British Museum in London, after they were removed from the Acropolis in Athens by British diplomat Lord Elgin in the early 19th century. Athens has long accused Elgin of theft, and controversy followed him when the marbles were brought to British soil.
There was a debate in the House of Commons. A select committee was set up to decide two things, really. Had he acquired these things legally, and were they any good?
So far, the UK government said it has no plans to return the statues, saying they were legally acquired at the time and they're safe in its museum, only prolonging this age-old debate even further. Krisan Ajkate, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead. An Indigenous woman's love for studying the sky takes her on an astronomical journey. Studying the night sky is something many love to do, but for one astrophysicist, her research is an extension of the knowledge passed down to her by her ancestors. In tonight's Indigenous Circle, Donna Sound on the traditional teachings that helped the astronomer reach a Canadian milestone.
This is an 8-inch telescope.
This is one of the biggest telescopes in Canada's biggest city. To be able to use it takes a big title. And Laurie Rousseau-Neptune has one as the first Indigenous woman in Canada to become an astrophysicist, taking years of study to get here.
When you love doing something, it goes fast.
Her love for the sky began when she was a child.
The river is high, eh?
Born in Quebec, she always knew studying the sky was her calling. Her home was where she first honed the skills she uses now.
I also build cameras, instrument that goes on telescopes. So that's something special about my job.
She studies star formations in galaxies that have billions of them and says the academic community is playing catch up with Indigenous knowledge.
I found so much beautiful information and deep understanding of our universe from my community that is old knowledge from hundreds, like thousands of years ago. They knew all of that stuff. They always said that we come from the stars and that we return from the stars.
She also led a massive research project at the Canada-France-Hawaii Telescope on the summit of Mauna Kea, helping to unravel the mysteries of star formation.
I was helping other astronomers for all around the world.
Now she's teaching others about the universe as an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. Rousseau-Neptune doesn't just study the stars. She has also been known to wish upon them as well.
Yes, I do.
Donna Sound, CTV News, Toronto.
And here's another celestial surprise.
I was upstairs folding laundry just inside the window there on the upper level. And all of a sudden I heard this loud bang, like somebody slamming a hockey stick butt end into the roof. And I thought, did somebody just shoot my roof? So then I thought, I wonder if it's a meteorite that hit the roof.
Doug Olson was bang on. While cleaning out his rain gutters this spring, he discovered a pebble-sized gray and black rock that fell in the fall of 2022. A meteorite expert from the University of Alberta confirmed the rock is from outer space. After the break, wooden wonders. One man carves out a legacy of generosity. Finally for us tonight, creative construction from a BC man. Despite living with a debilitating condition, he's helping children's charities by donating some traditional toys. CTV's Adam Sawatsky explains.
To appreciate why Lyndon Franz is so festive now, we need to go back to that day he got a nail stuck in his eye.
It's probably about that size.
Lyndon was 14 when his friend threw a bunch of nails at the back of his head as a joke.
I turned around and got one in the eye,
leaving Lyndon permanently blind in one eye and unable to play his beloved baseball.
I mean, the one thing I loved doing, I couldn't do anymore.
Lyndon says he struggled for years before discovering a passion for photography.
It was amazing.
And like his picture of the sun rising on a new day, Lyndon learned creativity could brighten his life.
I knew I could just keep going on.
Until years later, when he had to give up photography after being hospitalized for debilitating bouts of vertigo, which led to a severe and chronic condition.
My brain is telling me I'm falling all the time.
Leaving Lyndon spending most of his energy simply trying to stay up.
It's tough. Just try to keep going every day.
But like he did after the nail, rather than focusing on all the things he couldn't do, Lyndon taught himself something creative he could.
So I just started playing with the wood.
Making simple wooden toys, which led to constructing more complex ones.
And I just really enjoyed it.
Well, after gifting the first few to his grateful grandchildren, Lyndon has spent the past few years being inspired by Santa, making hundreds of toys to donate to local daycares and children's charities for Christmas.
The thing about wooden toys, the kids can use your imagination a lot more.
Although, when he receives photos and thank you cards showing how much kids like his toys, you don't need to imagine how meaningful it is for Lyndon. You can see it in his eyes.
I need to do something, and if I can give back a little bit, well, that just makes it all the better.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, View Royal.
Some beautiful creations. That's our show for this Sunday night. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night.